Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
There's a quiet truth about the people who feel most at home in an empty room. They weren't born this way. No child arrives in the world already choosing silence over connection, already picking the corner of the house where no one will find them. We call it introversion and we leave it there. But the real story sits much deeper than a personality label. This isn't a trait. It's a survival strategy. One that was built brick by brick in childhood, long before that person ever had the words to explain what was happening to them. Somewhere along the way, being alone stopped feeling like loneliness. It became the one room in the house where the walls never moved. So what actually happened back there? What kind of childhood turned solitude into a fortress? Welcome back to Motivational Humanity. Today we're walking through 6 hidden psychological roots that explain why some people feel safer in their own company than in anyone else's. Stay until the end, because the silence you've been carrying might mean something completely different than you've always believed. I am reclaiming my peace, and by the time we finish today, you might be ready to say it too. Insecure attachment. When a small child feels frightened, their whole body is wired to run toward the nearest safe adult. In a healthy environment, that adult opens their arms and the fear dissolves. When this happens again and again, the child's nervous system quietly writes down a rule. The world is safe, and people can be trusted with my fear. But picture a different childhood, one where you never knew which adult was coming home. Some evenings, your mother laughed with you at the dinner table, asked about your day, made the whole house feel warm. Other evenings, the same woman walked through the door and the temperature dropped the second she crossed the threshold. Monday, you knocked over your juice and she laughed it off. Thursday, the exact same spill turned into 40 minutes of silence and slammed cupboards. You learned to read faces before you learned to read books. You became fluent in a language no child should have to speak, the language of, which version of them do I get today? When that pattern repeats for years, the developing brain has no choice but to protect itself with a conclusion. Connection is a gamble. Psychologists call this an insecure attachment style. When love arrives wrapped in unpredictability, the instinct to run toward people for comfort quietly rewires itself into an instinct to step back. Not because you dislike people, because trusting someone whose warmth can vanish without warning feels like standing on ice that might crack at any second. As an adult, you may run meetings brilliantly, hold conversations with ease, laugh at parties. But there's an invisible line drawn a few feet around you that nobody is permitted to cross. And when you finally close your apartment door at night, something in your chest exhales. Why? Because solitude keeps its promises. The empty room has never once changed its mood on you. It has never gone cold overnight. When you are alone, you are finally, fully safe from the thing your childhood taught you to fear most, someone else's shifting weather. Invisible wounds. Not every childhood wound leaves a mark you can point to. Some of the deepest ones are made of absence, not action. Psychology has a quiet name for this: childhood emotional neglect, or CEN. Unlike abuse, this isn't about what was done to you. It's about what never arrived. Maybe your childhood looked perfectly fine from the outside. A tidy home, good grades, a decent school uniform, family photos where everyone is smiling. But inside your emotional world, you were raising yourself. It happened in small, forgettable moments. You came home crying because a friend humiliated you in front of the whole class, and you were told, "It's not a big deal. Stop being dramatic." You tried to explain that you were scared of something and got a wave of the hand. You're a kid. What do you even have to be afraid of? You ran in with a drawing you were proud of and got a distracted nice without anyone looking up from their phone. Your feelings existed. They were simply never met. So what does a child do with that? They can't abandon their parents, so instead, they quietly abandon their own need to be understood. At some point, a switch flips. You stop explaining yourself. You stop crying where anyone can see. You build a private rule. Whatever I feel, I process alone, inside, where it's safe from indifference. Look at how that shows up now. When a project falls apart at work, or a relationship ends, your first move isn't to call someone and fall apart on the phone. Your first move is to shut the bedroom door, sit with it by yourself, build a plan, and come out the other side already composed. When someone texts, "You good?" you type, "Yeah, all fine," before you've even finished the thought. People might read you as distant, maybe even cold. What they don't know is that you learned, a long time ago, that opening your feelings to the light only ever brought back a shrug. For you, being alone means no one gets to dismiss what you feel, because no one else is in the room to do it. Forced independence. Our culture loves to praise independence. We hand out gold stars for people who need no one. But for a lot of people drawn to solitude, that independence isn't a badge of honor. It's a scar with a story behind it. Psychology calls this parentification, sometimes described as the caregiving child. This happens when a child gets handed an adult's job before they've finished being a child. Maybe money was tight and both parents worked around the clock. Maybe one parent was struggling with their own pain, illness, or constant conflict at home. Whatever the cause, you became the one who held things together. You were the one calming your younger brother down after a nightmare. You were the one soothing your own tears because no one else was available to do it. You carried weight that was never meant to sit on a 9-year-old's shoulders. And the cruelest part? Everyone praised you for it. She's so mature for her age. He never gives us any trouble. That praise quietly became a trap. The hidden message that settled into your identity was simple and brutal. My worth comes from never being a burden. I am not allowed to need anything. Grown up, that becomes hyper-independence. You're the coworker who never asks for an extension, the friend who never asks for a ride, the one who'll work through a fever rather than admit you need a hand. Asking for help feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, because deep down, needing someone still feels like the thing that gets you abandoned or disappointed. Alone, you finally feel powerful and safe. No one can let you down if you never gave them the chance to hold anything of yours in the first place. The empty apartment isn't a hideout. It's the only place you're allowed to set the weight down. A nervous system on overload. Let's step outside the emotional world for a moment and look at the physical one. Home is supposed to be the safest place a child knows. For some of you, it was the loudest. Maybe you grew up in a small apartment with thin walls, a television that was always too loud, adults who argued in bursts that seemed to come out of nowhere. Maybe there was never a door you could close and actually expect quiet on the other side. To survive that, your nervous system had to work overtime from the time you were small, constantly scanning footsteps, bracing for the next slammed door, the next raised voice. That kind of environment doesn't just create memories. It reshapes the wiring of your stress response, keeping your body on a low simmer of alert that never fully switches off. That's why, as an adult, a crowded restaurant or a loud family gathering can leave you utterly drained within an hour, even if nothing bad actually happened. Overlapping voices, bright lights, too many things demanding your attention at once. Your body reads it as danger, the same way it read that noisy house years ago. People tell you, get out, be social, it'll lift your mood. What they don't understand is that for your nervous system, going out isn't a refill. It's a withdrawal. Your body slips right back into the same alert state it lived in as a child, which is exactly why the quiet room isn't an escape. It's a charging station. Silence is the only thing that lets your parasympathetic nervous system finally switch on. Your heart rate drops, your shoulders unclench, your mind stops scanning for danger. For you, solitude isn't a luxury. It's biological maintenance, the highly sensitive nervous system. This next route doesn't come from your environment. It comes from the way you were built. Psychology calls it HSP, or the highly sensitive person, and it describes roughly 15 to 20% of people. If most people experience the world in standard definition, an HSP child experiences it in full, unfiltered high definition. You didn't just hear the tension between your parents in the next room. You felt it settle into your stomach before either of them said a word. You felt heavy for the rest of the day if you passed a stranger crying at a bus stop. A room full of forced smiles could make your skin crawl even as a child. because you were absorbing the real emotional temperature underneath the surface. Without a filter separating your inner world from everyone else's, you carried other people's weather as if it were your own. If nobody around you understood this, you were probably called too sensitive, dramatic, or a crybaby. And a child flooded daily with emotion they can't process has exactly one tool available: pull back and build a wall around themselves. As an adult, that shows up as being the friend everyone comes to for comfort, the person with a remarkable gift for reading a room, and then, an hour later, needing to disappear completely. That's not you being antisocial. That's your nervous system hitting 100% capacity after soaking up everyone else's emotional residue. Solitude, for you, is an emotional wringing out. It's how you separate your own feelings from everyone else's and remember where you end and the world begins. Love with conditions attached. One last question. Think back honestly. Was your childhood full of praise? Were you the good kid, the top student, the one your family bragged about at every gathering? On paper, it looked ideal. But quietly, underneath all that praise, your mind recorded a different, harsher rule. Love here isn't free. It's earned. You noticed that the smiles came out after the report card came home with A's on it. The hugs arrived when you behaved perfectly in front of company. But the moment you failed a test, made a mess, or simply showed a bad mood, that warmth vanished, replaced by disappointment or a coldness that felt worse than yelling ever could. The love you received had one silent clause attached to it: stay excellent, or at least stay useful. What does that training produce? An adult wired for people-pleasing. Somewhere in your subconscious, other people's presence equals a stage. The moment someone walks into the room, a switch flips, and you're scanning what they need, adjusting your face, performing the version of yourself least likely to be judged or abandoned. And that's the real reason solitude calls to you so loudly. It was never about hating people. Being alone is the only part of your day when the stage lights go off. Nobody in that room is grading your performance. Nobody's love is on the line because you're tired, messy, or simply human. For the first time all day, you're allowed to just exist, bringing it together. Lay all 6 roots side by side. Insecure attachment, invisible wounds, forced independence, an overloaded nervous system, high sensitivity, and love with conditions. A very different picture starts to form, one that has nothing to do with being introverted or hard to reach. You didn't arrive in this world wanting to keep everyone at arm's length. You built that distance because at some point, it was the only thing that kept you safe. Safer than being dismissed. Safer than being misread. Safer than hoping for warmth and getting cold shoulders instead. Your mind did something remarkably intelligent back then. It protected you. And that deserves to be named clearly. There is nothing broken about you. You haven't lost your capacity to love or connect. You simply learned, far too early, how to survive emotionally with no one else holding the other end of the rope. That kind of self-reliance takes extraordinary strength. But here's the cost that comes with it. The very shield that once kept the storm out can, years later, start blocking the sunlight too. When you build a life where you need absolutely no one, you also, without meaning to, close the door on the people who might have stayed. When you lock every window against the cold, you also lose the breeze. So the real question isn't, why do I like being alone? The real question is, am I choosing this solitude or am I defaulting into it? Those are 2 entirely different lives. A choice carries freedom and peace. A default runs on autopilot, usually powered by old fear. This isn't a video telling you to throw open every door and force yourself into every crowded room starting tomorrow. Silence is still allowed to be your sanctuary. It's where you think clearly, where you come back to yourself. That doesn't need to change. What this video is really offering you is awareness. Once you understand where the pattern came from, you get to decide what happens next. You start noticing the difference between resting because you genuinely need it and hiding because an old alarm bell just went off out of habit. You deserve your quiet evenings. You also deserve relationships where you don't have to shrink, perform, or brace yourself. You deserve people who make connection feel like strength, not something you have to carry alone. If this helped you see your own silence a little differently today, stay close, hit subscribe, and let's keep exploring the corners of the human mind together. And before you go, of the 6 routes we walked through, which one felt closest to your own story? Tell me in the comments, because here, your silence is always heard. I am reclaiming my peace, and I hope, a little more today, you are too.